Hey, you are about to listen to an episode of the Break It Down Show with our special guest, Jeff Trager. Before we get to the episode, though, we just want to plug two of his events. Saturday, March 5th at 8 p.m., the Red Carpet Gala, and Saturday, March 12th, also at 8 p.m., the Gentlemen of Soul Showcase. Both events take place at the Downtown Theater on Texas Street in Fairfield, so go to jefftragerpresents.com, find out more about the events, buy tickets, go to the events, check them out. Again, jefftragerpresents.com, spelled just like it sounds.
Jeff, you can come over to my house anytime, man. When you come over to my house, I get fancy cookies. I don't get to eat this shit on normal days.
Just like that. Okay.
This is Jeff Trager, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
You've had a long and illustrious career.
I've had this life where I've met some of the most interesting people in the strangest places.
So where do we begin? San Francisco, where you grew up.
Right?
You worked in a hotel as a busboy?
No, I worked as a bellboy.
As a bellboy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And you made a friend.
I made a lot of friends there.
Yeah?
Oh, you're talking about the big guy.
I'm talking about the big guy.
Oh, yeah. All the teams used to stay there.
Okay.
At the Jack Tar Hotel.
The Jack Tar Hotel.
Right. All the teams, maybe outside of the Celtics, but everybody was there. And I befriended the owner of the team, a guy named Eddie Gottlieb. I used to take him down to get chicken soup down the street.
Okay.
Put him in my XKE with the top down, and I got this older guy from Philadelphia, and he's one of the pioneers in the NBA. But we became very good friends, and every night Eddie would come out we'd go to a game, and Eddie would give me 25, 30 tickets.
No kidding.
Yeah. And then I call my friends. I say, come on, I got tickets to go. But,
a handful of them.
Yeah, but I was better than that, though. The teams would come out to get their cabs and go out to the game, and they'd come by and say, hey, Jeff, you need some tickets? We don't have anybody to give them to. And I said, oh, I'd love some tickets. I'd love to go. And I already had 25 in my pocket. Right. But anyway, I got a call from Wilt Chamberlain, who stayed at the hotel.
Uh-huh.
And he called me up. He says, I noticed that you were hanging around with Eddie, and Eddie was his...
Palling around with you.
Well, Eddie was like a second father to Wilt.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said, look, I trust you because I see you with Eddie.
Uh-huh.
And he says, I used to be a bellboy in high school. Up in upper state New York.
Hell of a thing to have in common with Wilt Chamberlain.
6'11" bellboy.
Yeah.
I'll take all of your bags.
7'1" and 1/16", and believe me, he was taller than 7'2".
Wow.
Yeah. But anyway, he'd go out on the road, and I'd take care of his stuff. And so when he'd come back, he had a beautiful Bentley, lavender Bentley convertible, and I had the keys, and I'd put his stuff in the trunk, and so I got his Bentley, and I'd drive it around the garage, around in circles. And he never knew that until...
Because you always put the seat back before he came back.
No, I never touched the seat. It was a double bucket seat in the front. It was so big,
wow.
Because his legs were so long.
Uh-huh.
But he bought a place up in Twin Peaks in San Francisco. And when he'd go on the road, he'd let me stay at his place, and I would watch it for him.
Come on.
Wow. It was great.
I had no idea Wilt Chamberlain lived in San Francisco.
Yeah, he had a house that was 8-foot doors and 30-feet ceilings, and he had a pool on the third floor built into the mountain.
Wow.
And that's where his dogs stayed. And they had a doghouse as big as an apartment house.
Yeah.
But Wilt...
So somebody had to stick around there and mind the dogs. And
well, he liked that, yeah. And I
sure.
lived right up the street. So when he come back off the road, I had a room. I could have stayed there, but I went home to my place, and we go to track meets. We went and saw the world record in the mile over at Berkeley, and he'd take his dogs with him, and we'd go down to some of the black high schools in the peninsula, because Wilt would always be asked to do...
speak and stuff like that.
Speak. So he'd always double the fee, and then he'd turn around and say, look, you got to give it to the athletic department. And then he'd sit in the parking lot and he'd sign autographs until there was nobody left.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. Me in the back seat with the two giant Danes, Odin and Thor. They were huge.
That's a sweet story, man. He'd double the fee and then give it to the athletic.
Yeah, he says, I'll speak. And
here's how much money you got to raise. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
he'd take the fee and hand it over to the athletic department.
Yeah, you got to do it this way.
What a guy.
Yeah. No, Wilt did an awful lot of things that people don't know about. And there was a basketball player named Maurice Stokes that had an aneurysm back in the late 50s. And when he was in the hospital, Wilt would give money from every one of his checks to help this guy because they didn't have the
Medical coverage.
Medical
and stuff that they have
coverage.
now.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's different. But when I go pay my rent, I see the checks.
Yeah.
And the guy said, yeah, Wilt gives donation from every one of his checks. And he was an interesting guy. I mean, all he wanted was a friend, that he could sit and talk with,
Sure.
regular style.
Right.
A friend, a real friend.
Yeah. I mean, he was like a guy that I could hang out with. We'd go down on Saturday morning sometime and play horse at this gym out in Sunset.
Did you ever win?
Never. I got an H.
Yeah.
And then he'd take me up the top of the key and start throwing in hook shots from the top of the key.
You're right.
Hook shots that didn't touch nothing but net. The guy was... I never thought a human being could do that. Everything was swish, swish, and you do 9, 10 in a row. And I said, how come you don't do that in the game? And he goes, well, because that's not where I play. He played with the Globetrotters, and he worked out. Actually played as a guard.
I remember when Meadowlark Lemon busted off from the Globetrotters, and he had a team called the Buccateers.
Buccateers, yeah, exactly.
And he
right.
had Wilt on the Buccateers, too. He recruited him to go with him. And it's kind of neat to hear that a guy like Wilt Chamberlain would have just a normal, everyday guy hang out with his buddy, kind of.
Well, yeah, because everybody wanted a piece of him.
Sure.
I didn't care. I mean, he was Wilt Chamberlain, but, once you sit down with the guy, you can get comfortable with him. He's just a really regular guy. He
Sound like a nice guy.
He was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
He just, he got a lot of flack because of some of the black leaders saying that he wasn't,
wasn't involved enough.
In civil rights. Well, he's the one who went into Kansas where he went there, and he integrated Kansas.
Sure.
That's not enough for some people.
No, but see, Wilt liked people. He
Yeah.
didn't care whether you were black or white or brown. Or, he didn't care. That wasn't it. He just enjoyed people's company. He was the kind of guy that was curious. He was always a very bright guy.
Well, here's a guy who has an opportunity that a lot of people don't, to see parts of the world that most people just can't get out that much.
Right.
So it's nice to hear that he had a curiosity that could be stimulated in that environment.
Right. Well, he did a lot for civil rights just by being who he
Just
was.
by being
Sure.
Wilt Chamberlain, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Jim Brown and Bill Russell and Ali, Kareem, they were all part of the movement. Dick Gregory,
Sure.
the comedian.
Yep.
And they said, we want you to do this, Wilt. And he says, I will,
Yeah.
in my own way. And with his stature, you can do things. People will do things for you because you are Wilt Chamberlain.
Sure.
And not because you're just black or you're a certain color, which was... He didn't care. I mean...
You look at Kansas. Kansas is 90+% white.
Right.
And most of those folks don't even know someone or identify with someone who's of any color.
Of course not.
So when he's there and they can identify, now, just by being there and being iconic and just being himself, being a people person... Now they have someone they can identify with, and it humanizes and bridges that gap a little bit. And that's
Hopefully,
a lot.
for most people, yeah. And that is a lot.
That is a lot.
No, he went in, when I say integrated Lawrence, Kansas, I mean, he went into a cafeteria sort of style, and they said, we're not going to serve you.
Right.
Okay. And Will said, excuse me?
Yeah.
I said, I'm not moving.
Yeah.
And they had to serve him.
Yeah. That's a whole lot of man.
And that was the first time that they let people of color, mostly blacks, in.
Yeah.
Because Will wouldn't move.
Well, that's great that he was the pioneer in Lawrence, Kansas, because nowadays, and in the time since, actually, Lawrence, Kansas is kind of known as a
Yeah.
Very open place. And a lot of that, I imagine, has to do with Jayhawks basketball.
Sure.
Yeah.
And started with Wilt Chamberlain. But a lot of people, for Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas is probably the most open, liberal place.
Well, maybe at that time in the late 50s it wasn't.
Right.
And
Yeah,
he kind of opened up a few people's eyes,
Sure.
So, when we, later on, just before he passed, we would talk about the fact that most of his friends, he didn't, he just liked people. He just cared.
Sure.
That's all that's what he went on, the value of what kind of person you were.
Right. And he had an opportunity to meet a lot of people.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
Just fascinating person.
So we lured you over here so we could chat with you about whatever you got going on nowadays and hopefully reminisce about some of the interesting and wild things you saw in your long and illustrious career in the music business. And here we are, a solid 10 minutes into this podcast, and we still haven't gotten away from Wilt Chamberlain, who you met when you were a bellboy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else happened at that hotel? Where was that hotel?
Van Ness and Geary.
And Geary.
Okay.
Geary and O'Farrell.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right there. And it was quite a place. There was a lot going on. I met the Byrds there before they made it. They would come and they did a show there. And, we'd get visits from just people from all over the world because it wasn't the Fairmont.
Right.
Right.
It was a really nice, comfortable place.
But a little more hip.
Yeah, I met James Brown there. I met Buddy Rich, June Wilkinson, who was a big British star. I met Jack Nicklaus right before he went on the tour. Before he went professional. When he just got out of Ohio State. I had no idea, of course.
Yeah.
But I met so many people and so many ball players. Greats. People like Hank Aaron and George Hallis, who owned the team. He was the biggest chipper I ever had.
Wow.
It was fascinating because every day you meet new people. And I think I learned what I wanted from another person, and that's what was respect. I had a little name tag, and somebody come up to me one day and said, "Hey, boy, I need you." I said, no, my name isn't Hey Boy. My name is Jeff.
Yeah.
My name is Jeff.
Yeah.
So... you get to learn about life that way.
Yep.
People come in and they think because you're a common worker that they can,
Toss you around and talk down to you.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Not that I was militant. I felt that that's the way a human being should be treated.
Sure.
It's all right to stand up on your own 2 feet when you're working and earn your own money. You weren't going to say something that you can't afford to say, and you're allowed to say that. So, you absolutely have earned that right. You just got to stand up and take it.
You know what? I think everybody should work in the service industry at some point. I tended bar and waited tables and stuff, and there's a tact that you learn because there are always going to be those occasions where somebody's trying to push you around, and you get to say, hey, come on, man. We're human beings in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So...
When you got that job, were you aware of the kind of place that it was? Obviously you didn't know where it was going to take your life.
No, I had no idea. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
I had no idea.
Just stoked to have a job.
I read somewhere that you were a fifth-year sophomore at San Francisco City College.
Well, that was it. See, I was going to City College. I went there, started in 61.
Uh-huh.
I went there when O.J. Simpson went there.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah. And, I saw him play, and he was unbelievable.
Your life is full of things where you saw them before they were something, You're
sort of like the Forrest Gump of the music business,
Well,
I had Jack Nicklaus in my 1962 fantasy college golf team,
It's weird. I've had this life where I've met some of the most interesting people and famous people in the strangest places. And I caddied for Bing Crosby when I was a caddy up the Russian River. I was 13, 14. And he sang to me. I asked him about a song, and he sang to me. And then I met Tony Bennett in a little bar that I was working, and he came in one night trying to have a couple of drinks with his girlfriend and friends, and he sang. And then I met Eartha Kitt.
Wow.
In a 100-seater where she was practicing and didn't even know I was sitting there.
Wow.
And that was amazing. I mean, these people are iconic.
Sure.
You know.
I want to move into your career and what happened in your career, because you got plenty of interesting stuff in there too. But when you were at the hotel, when you said, I met the big guy. The big guy I was referring to was George Moscone.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a big guy.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
George used to get his haircuts there.
Uh-huh.
George and the Burton boys. And then George knew that I liked music because one night we hooked up and went to see Stan Getz at the Both And in San Francisco.
Uh-huh.
And then we went and saw Ike and Tina Turner.
Tell us about seeing Ike and Tina Turner, because you really were instrumental in breaking them in the business, and they were playing bowling alleys.
Well, that's true. They used to play a thing called the Chitlin Circuit.
Sure.
You know, Ike had the best band on the Chitlin Circuit.
And, man, Ike was bad. I mean,
Ike was really good.
That's the thing that maybe gets overlooked nowadays, especially after the movie. I'm not here to defend Ike Turner, but I am here to say, hey, he sure was an amazing musician and a spectacular showman and guitar player. Yeah. And I don't want that to get lost in in a movie that tells a story that was not flattering.
Well, and you have to, if you're going to talk about Ike Turner and his contribution, he has a legitimate claim to inventing rock and roll.
Right.
So, I mean, you can start right. There's good and bad with every person, and that's a whole lot of good right there.
So, listeners who are not hip to the claim that Ike Turner invented rock and roll, go listen to the record Rocket 88.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jeff?
There's several people you can say that they invented, but Ike had a lot to do with it. He had his own distinct sound. And the one thing that Ike did that I don't think a lot of people know, that Ike stole a lot of the Motown moves.
Okay.
So then he would teach Tina, so that Tina would teach the Ikettes. Mm-hmm. So that's where they came up with a lot of their moves. And they were they were so good when they would dance, behind Ike's playing. And Ike was a taskmaster, he wanted to.
Yes, he was. Things had to be perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's the way James Brown was, too.
Sure.
The greats.
Famously.
Yeah. But Ike they just never had that hit record.
Yeah.
See? And then they did a record. They had semi-hits, but they were mostly black records, in those days.
Yeah, they didn't have that crossover big hit.
Pop stations very rarely played their music.
Huh.
But Ike and Tina did a record called River Deep Mountain High that Phil Spector produced.
Uh-huh.
And it was a #1 record in England, but it only went to like 30-something here in the United States for some reason. And Phil Spector was just besides himself. He couldn't believe that it wasn't a hit. It was a great record.
Yeah.
I don't know why it wasn't. It's just that radio hadn't played Ike and Tina Turner records, so to them, they had quota systems in those days. They only played so many black records.
Yeah.
And the guy that broke all that was Berry Gordy.
Sure.
And then people said,
there's a lot of good music out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you work River Deep Mountain High as a
No. I didn't. What happened was that record came out just about the time I got in the record business. And Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, A&M, they're the ones who put it out. And I had just started in the business, and I got this album came in, and it was called Out of Season.
Okay.
And I looked at the cover, and I went, oh, my God, look at this. It was Ike and Tina in whiteface eating watermelon.
Oh,
wow.
Called Out of Season. The guy who produced the record, that produced James Brown, was very, very... He was right out front. He just said, okay. To him, it wasn't a black or a white record. It was a record. It was 2 blues albums that he cut. Ike was playing on piano on both. I mean, Ike was a good piano player.
Right.
So anyway, I listened to the first track off the record, and it was called I've Been Loving You Too Long, which Otis Redding had a hit like 3 years earlier. So I took it to the top 40 station, and they said to me, no, we can't play this. It's too black.
Huh.
And I said, wait a second. I was in here last week with a James Brown record. What's the difference here? Well, it's too dirty. I said, well, then, okay, tell me it's too dirty. Don't tell me it's too black.
Right.
Because I don't know anything about like that.
Right.
I'm going to show Pete the
Yeah, I'm looking
out
at
of
it.
season. Wow.
Yeah.
Ike
that
and Tina
cool?
in whiteface,
That is.
Yeah.
eating watermelon.
Yeah. I mean, at first you get a little, some people were offended, but on the other hand, they got past it.
That's
you know?
entertainment, man, with a little bit of social commentary.
Well, I mean,
just
yeah,
like
it's
you
right
like it.
there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay. But it was all about the music.
Sure.
So I cut a deal with KDI and K-Soul, which was the two black stations
Yeah.
in the Bay Area. I said, I'm going to break this record. And I said, I'm going to make this Ike and Tina's first hit. And they said, boy, you got a mountain to climb. I says, yeah, KFRC won't play it. I'm going to force them. So I got me a whole bunch of 45s, boxes. And I get in my car, and I drive into to Richmond, and I drive into Oakland. There was Mama Papa stores there. And you go in there, and in San Francisco, they had one on Divisadero Street.
Okay.
So I'd double park. I'd run in. I'd give it to the guy who owned the store, and I'd say, I need you to report this. Free records for them.
Yeah.
They make money. They sell them.
Sure.
You know? So I got the black stations to put it in power rotation. So they kept it there for about 6 weeks. In the meantime, KFRC's getting all these reports.
That this record is happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
The stores are reporting it because they're selling it.
Yeah.
You know, so they report it, and all of a sudden it's in their top 10, and KFRC goes, wow, look at this. Okay,
We better play this record.
maybe, yeah, because they didn't know.
They're getting left behind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they got to play something that works. They knew how much I really wanted it to, you know, so they were kind of happy, but they never really played it very much. They'd never play it in the morning and drive time. They play it once in a while. They added it, but the fact that they added it opened the eyes of other stations across the country.
Yeah.
And so,
It was just about making an incremental difference in little places.
And they were going-
letting that spread.
yeah, and these are a lot of these stations were going,
Right.
Ike and Tina Turner, who are they?
Wow.
That's just the way it was.
What a different era that is, too, because you're hoofing it around town, all over the Bay, trying to get these records to move. This is so different than the internet era. I mean, like, you had to know where to go. You had to have a map.
I'm not trying to pull anything.
You're giving them something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wanted. They got behind what I was doing, which was really great.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, I got the R&B stations doing that, and then I got the stores, and that started my relationship with a lot of these.
Tell us what year that was.
68, something like that.
68. That's right around the time Sly Stone was at KSOL.
Yeah.
I think he was on before then.
Okay.
Just before
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because he was starting to break out in 68.
Yeah, 67. But the fact that I got KFRC to play it and other stations across the country,
Yeah, that's a deal.
yeah, it wasn't a big hit,
Yep.
but there's different degrees of hits.
Right.
See?
Right.
And
Yeah, there are some, Pete and I have this debate all the time. There are some records that are a hit, and then there are some records that are important.
that was important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was an important record.
That was a
changed
very
things,
important-
It opened doors.
I tell you what it did for them. It got them on the Rolling Stones tour with B.B. King
Oh, come on.
and a guy named Terry Reid out of England. And so they opened up.
If you like the show,
And you do.
send us some pictures of your movies.
Don't do that. Support the show.
There are 3 ways you can support us.
Number 1, go to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to podcasts.
And leave a 5-star rating and review.
It helps with the show metrics and it helps us get better placement. Number 2,
Visit our website.
www.breakitdownshow.com.
We've got an Amazon and an eBay link.
Same Amazon, same eBay, you know and love, but they give us a little kickback when you get to their site from ours. And number 3, leave comments about the shows that you like. We want to know what you think, how you feel.
Tell us how to make the show better. We greatly appreciate it.
Now back to the show.
We like boobies.
So it was Ike and Tina,
Yeah.
Terry Reid, B.B. King, and the
Yeah.
Rolling Stones.
Yeah. And we'd go into Forum, and Mick Jagger loved Tina.
Yeah.
Tina loved Mick.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't leave. At the end of the show, when the Stones would come on, Ike wanted to go home, and Tina would be going, Ike, I'll meet you at home.
Right.
And he'd go, because he stuttered a lot.
Yeah.
And Tina would be standing on the chairs, going screaming and jumping like a little kid. She was a great woman. She raised those 4 kids in the middle of all that chaos,
Yeah.
you know.
Chaos.
Well, I never seen him here, but
I mean, they lived in the entertainment world and making
Right,
a living,
right.
and that's just in the kindest sense. That's chaos.
Well, the thing that impressed me the most, and I finally learned what the hell I was doing in the music business, was breaking that record got him a show at Fillmore West.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Ray Charles, Aretha Franklin, and Ike and Tina Turner's opening for them.
Jeez.
That might be the greatest show I've ever seen.
Wow.
And Tina,
what a ticket.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and Tina came back off stage, and she was sweating like crazy, and she had a little dressing room. I mean, a little one. And she says, "Come on in here. I want to talk to you." And I went, "Okay." And she's got her wig off, sweating like crazy because she gives 200%.
Oh, yeah.
And she grabbed my hands and she said, "Look, I want to thank you for breaking that record because a couple of years ago we were playing bowling alleys." I said, "Yeah, I heard." It kind of dawned on me when I walked out of the room, like, I'm not just dropping off records. I'm making these people's dreams come true. You know, break an act that's as good and as significant as Ike and Tina Turner. You know, I'm going to put that on my tombstone.
Yeah.
You're talking about a record that was important, and it developed a career that was important. Because the hit records, that's great, but all that aside, I mean, you changed their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
But you also directed the face of popular music.
Well,
Do you know at the time, I mean, when you have the satisfaction of breaking a record like that, when you know maybe you didn't kick the door down, but you pried it open a little, getting them on KFRC, do you know at the time, this is going to change things a little
it
bit?
started to dawn on me just how important it was.
Yeah.
Okay, because the guys from KDI and K-Soul they were saying, "You did a great job, man."
Yeah.
Because, things are going to change for them.
Right.
This goes to, we had a Drez from Black Sheep on the show, and he talks about a similar thing where he's like, we break this ground, we build this bridge, and then the acts after that, they walk over us to further the bridge, further the path or whatever. And you're an increment before that where, you knock the door open just enough so that the next guy didn't have to do that, and it builds, and those aren't problems that happen on the radio anymore. It's
No, I agree. So, for my little part, I was emphatic that I was going to break that record.
Right.
Because, first of all, it was a good record. It was not a black record. It was a good record.
Just
First
a
of
good
all,
record.
first and foremost,
Okay.
right, it was a good record.
So I didn't care. I mean, I was working Al Green, the Isley Brothers, Curtis Mayfield, James Brown. I don't look at a record and go, "Oh, it's a black art." I mean, I'll just take it to KDI and K-Soul. This is a record I said ought to be played on the radio. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is a really good record that everybody will like, if it's heard.
Right.
But see, a lot of before that, they never heard Ike and Tina Turner records.
So you were at A&M at the time.
Well, I was working for a distributor that had A&M.
Oh, I see.
And I had other labels that I also represented at the same time.
Okay.
And Blue Thumb was one of those labels. Tetragrammaton was another one that Bill Cosby owned part of, actually. And they were all trying to hire me because I was doing a good job in San Francisco. And
Okay.
I just didn't want to leave because my family's from San Francisco and my friends are from San Francisco.
Right, so you didn't want to leave town. You wanted to stay
No. Blue Thumb Records, the only way they got me was they offered me a piece of the action.
Oh.
nice.
And I says, okay, because that meant I had to move to L.A.
Right.
And I wasn't really...
So what was on Blue Thumb?
The Pointer Sisters,
Okay.
Dave
Counts.
Mason, Leon Russell,
All right.
the Crusaders. We got the Crusaders that dropped the name Jazz.
All right.
We had a great record, Albert Collins record. We had an album called Buddy and the Juniors with Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, and Junior Mance. It was really cool.
Wow.
This label put out great records, and they didn't put out any records unless they really believed that there was a reason to. That's what I respected them. It was like going to the MIT of record labels.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't name any bubblegum artists.
No, they were real.
The likes of Dave Mason and
Sure.
and Leon Russell and Buddy
Sure.
Guy and
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a great label.
That's a great place to get a footing.
Well, yeah. I mean, when I'd walk into a radio station, they'd say, "What do you got?"
Right.
They're asking you.
Asking me.
You always bring something strong.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, usually promotion guys come in and they got to BS their way to getting a record.
You got the Crusaders to drop jazz out of their names.
Yeah. My partner, the two guys that I work for, Bob Krasnow, Tommy LaPuma. Bob produced James Brown. He signed Metallica. He signed Nita Baker. He signed George Benson. I mean, you know, Funkadelics. This guy was brilliant. Tommy produced everybody from Dinah Krall to Dave Mason to Randy Crawford to Patty Austin to Barbra Streisand to Paul McCartney just recently.
Jeez, yeah, no kidding.
You know, these guys.
Again, strength.
Quit naming slouches.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get
and they treated me as an equal.
Wow.
You know, when we have meetings to sign artists, to sign Leon Russell, he came in with the disc, and we all sat around, and he said, "Well, what do you think?" What do I know?
What did you think?
A year ago, I saw the bellboy in San Francisco. What do you mean?
I think I'm going to get my XKE and drive around to some shops in Richmond. And
They hired me because I had enough balls to go try to get a record to go fight the system.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right on.
And they liked that. That was they were Mavericks, and I was perceived to be one too. You know,
Sure, they needed somebody who had the balls.
and that's who you want to work for. You want to work for people. I was working many hours, and every night I'd be out till 11 o'clock at night and sending out 45s to radio stations and calling people on the air at night, disc jockeys, and
Just trying to pry that door open.
yeah, and you know they wanted you get a rapport with these guys.
Yep.
And Blue Thumb Records was a very hip label. It was a very record for a record. It was probably one of the best labels out there. Only trouble was we were distributed by the same distributor that had Motown. So you had to get in line
Yeah.
to get paid.
Sure.
They were putting out good records, too.
Well, you're not gonna fight Motown. Motown was so big and powerful,
Sure.
you know. But
And that roster of artists, I mean, even if you're Leon Russell, and we love Leon Russell.
Yeah.
So,
Tommy LaPuma actually went on and got George Benson to sing, and that's when he did Masquerade.
no kidding.
Yeah. He took that from Leon. Leon brought that into us. That was one of the records. Song for You, Donny Hathaway did. And that was on there.
That was a Leon Russell song?
Yeah.
Wow.
No, Leon Russell was a great writer.
Yeah.
Great writer. And, you know, Tommy...
Best beard in the business. Best hair in the business. Best sunglasses in the business. And
Yeah.
man, could he play.
Yeah, you know, he used to play with Gary Lewis and the Playboys. That's where he got his start. I mean, he was a great studio musician.
Yeah, I mean, he played on 1,000 records.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and then when he went on the road with Joe Cocker, it was Mad Dogs and Englishmen, and all those same musicians, Delaney and Bonnie and all those people, they all got together and helped each other out. It was an amazing time for music.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We had Denny Tedesco on our show. His dad was Tommy Tedesco.
Oh yeah, sure.
And he made a film called The Wrecking Crew.
Oh, I saw that here.
Yeah.
I saw it in Benicia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we did all that we could, first of all, to get the movie here. I was in a hair salon several years ago, and I was there getting my hair cut. And in the chair next to me, this lady was over there talking about The Wrecking Crew. And I'm a big fan of most things Wrecking Crew, primarily starting with Hal Blaine, because I grew up playing the drums, and I read Hal Blaine's book, and I worked at Mix Magazine, and we were a distributor of Hal Blaine's book, The Wrecking Crew. So I knew about The Wrecking Crew, and she was over there talking about The Wrecking Crew, and I thought, oh, that's a pretty obscure reference. I wonder who this chick is. And so when the guy who was cutting her hair turned around to go get, I don't know, tinfoil to wrap around her hair or something, I said, are you talking about The Wrecking Crew? And she looked at me, assuming that I knew not what she was talking about. And she said, I'm not talking about the wrestlers. I don't know anything about wrestlers. But I said, no, I'm not talking about the wrestlers either. I'm talking about Hal Blaine and Tommy Tedesco. And she lit up and she said, Tommy Tedesco was my father.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I said, no shit.
Yeah.
So we talked all about it. She was happy that I even knew who her dad was. He's the most recorded guitar player in history, for crying out loud.
Right.
I said, of course I know who he is. So she said, well, I'm going to tell you about my brother. He made a film in tribute to my dad.
Yeah.
And she introduced us, and we got to know each other through email because he's still living in Thousand Oaks or wherever he's living down there. And so I said, hey, man, when when the film's ready,
Yeah.
you ought to bring it to Benicia, and we'll promote the hell out of it. And between me and your sister, we'll pack
you
some
there
auditorium.
that night?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I went
Yeah.
with Pepino,
Oh, okay.
D'Agostino. Yeah.
Boy, he's something else too.
So if you're not sure exactly what we're talking about, there's a movie called The Wrecking Crew.
Right.
It's right now. You can watch it on Netflix.
It's on Netflix, yeah.
And you should absolutely watch it because it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It is world class.
I think you can watch it on Netflix and you can watch it on Amazon Prime, and you should check it out. It's a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
But during the time where Denny was raising money, because he had a lot of rights to purchase.
Yeah, all the different songs.
There's 144 songs in that movie, or some number like that.
Yeah.
And, of course, his dad played on a lot of those songs, and he knew all the behind-the-scenes stuff that went into the making of the music and wanted to make sure all the artists and the musicians were taken care of properly. So he wanted to do the right thing by all those songs, purchase all those rights. I think he spent $250,000
That
just
sounds about
buying
right.
music licenses.
Yeah.
So he had to huck the film on his back and go on the road with it. And one of the places that he came was right here in our hometown of Benicia, California, because his sister, Desiree, was a teacher here in town. So that night that we had the film here in town, we packed the high school auditorium. And the funny thing about that, Jeff, as a promoter, you're going to laugh at this, but we couldn't get the band to bite. Naturally, the first place we went was the band. And we said, hey, there's a movie, it's about the Wrecking Crew. And, the guy's trying to raise money to buy the licenses for the music. So what do you say everybody here who plays in the band will run out, sell 10 of these tickets. And here in town, I mean, my kids played baseball here in this town. The way that you sell tickets is the coach or the band director, whoever it is, says, here, you just bought these 10 tickets. You can sell them if you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
But you got to eat these 10 tickets. So then the parents get the 10 tickets. They write the check for $250, and then they convince 8 of their friends that they ought to buy tickets. We couldn't get the band to do it. The band said, no, I don't think it's going to. What do you mean you don't think it's going to? This is an artistic town with a great, quaint seaside downtown area.
A whole artist district.
It's there's a whole art district here. This place is prime for something that good.
Yeah.
And so the band wouldn't take it on because the band director didn't have the balls. There, I said it. Band director had no balls.
Who had the balls?
The cheerleaders.
Oh.
The cheerleaders. And guess what? Standing room only in that house.
Yeah.
They packed that house up. And at the beginning of the show, the oddest thing happened. And that was the cheerleaders came marching in and they did a cheer about music and rock and roll and the Wrecking Crew. And Denny on our show said, yeah, man, I was blown away. I'd never heard a cheer about my movie. So that was a great night.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
It was.
We had Denny on the show here, and it was it's a great show. It was right at the end of his. He had finally got a deal with Magnolia Films. Yeah. He had done his last required show. I did a few more shows after that, but that was it. He had tipped the scale and
yeah, he raised his last.
Right.
This is it. This pays for all the music licenses. I'm done after this fundraiser.
Right.
And he did it at Solano Community College.
Yeah.
And we did that right after. So that was great. It was really satisfying that he had come full circle and bought all those licenses. Who else did you work with?
Well, it's funny. I hadn't even told you what George Mosconi's real. As I was sitting here, I was going.
We never finished that story.
Get back to George.
yeah,
Because we got right into Ike and Tina. George knew Herb Alpert
Ah.
Okay.
Okay.
He had a friend that worked for Alpert, and they knew each other, and so he went to this guy, and the guy went to Alpert, and in 2 days had a job. I mean,
Wow.
And when I went down to Los Angeles to meet Alpert and Moss,
And Jerry Moss.
yeah, I walked in, and in the room was Antonio Carlos Jobim, George Benson, Quincy Jones,
Come on.
Yeah.
and Paul Williams.
Welcome to the music business.
You know who Paul Williams was?
Sure.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah, he's shorter than I
We'd
am.
love to have him on the show. We've been trying to
We've
get
been
him.
trying to get Paul
Oh
Williams
yeah,
for
no,
6
no,
months.
We would love to get
He
Paul
made
Williams.
he made so much money for Herb Alpert, I can't tell you, because of publishing.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really
Yeah, I mean, he
Truth.
wrote this. He was sort of the predecessor to Randy Newman
Yeah.
in his accessibility.
Yeah.
And the stuff that he wrote was so... I mean, he wrote...
Sticky.
well. I
Yeah.
don't
So
think Randy wrote a song. Some of the songs that he wrote.
What was the Kermit the Frog song? That
The
Well,
Rainbow
yeah,
Connection.
The Rainbow Connection.
Yeah.
Paul Williams wrote the Rainbow Connection, for crying out loud.
Man, brilliant.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into the record business.
So you walked in, and here in this room is Herb Alpert
yeah,
and Jerry Moss.
Jerry Moss,
Antonio Carlos Jobim.
his secretary goes go right in.
George Benson.
How you doing?
George Benson. Quincy Jones.
Quincy Jones. Yeah. You're
I
talking-
I'm going. This is crazy. I'm like 2 weeks ago. I'm
Right.
working as a bellboy.
Right.
And I'm in the room there, and I don't know what to say to anybody. And Herb's is nice. He's just a nice guy, very private, but as I come to find out. But he had his music that
I've
he
never heard anybody say an unkind word about Herb Alpert.
No, I just saw him about in December. He came to play Yoshi's and
He's still playing.
with his wife, who sang with Brazil '66.
Yeah.
See, we signed Sergio at Blue Thumb
Okay.
to do an album by. He did an offshoot group called Bossa Rio, and that's his girlfriend at the time was Gracinha.
Okay.
I forget her last name, and Gracinha was the lead singer of this group, and it was a nice, really nice record. I mean, they were doing Blackbird Singing in the Dead of Night, one of the coolest, hippest version.
The Bossa Nova version?
Yeah. Oh God.
I love a
Spinning
Bossa
wheel.
Nova. I love a Bossa Nova, man.
Oh, and so, but of course, Herb signed Sergio and produced it. Said Herb Alpert presents Brazil '66.
Sure.
And in that group was Lonnie Hall, one of the singers. Well, Herb married her. Now, the funny part about it was I had just started, and I went up to Sacramento for a show, and I got to see Brazil '66. And after the show, I was sitting there, and I saw Lonnie Hall walk by, and I went, wow, I'm going to ask her for a drink.
Yeah.
I got no shame. I have no fear. I'm just going to do it. Maybe I had a couple drinks.
Yeah.
And as I go to step up to say something to her, across the lobby comes Herb Alpert. It just happens to be his girlfriend. And I went, Ralph Cramden. I just pulled kept my mouth shut. But I love Sergio. I used to go see Sergio Mendes when it was Brazil '65. Before, I mean,
That's when you had to change the name of your band every year.
Yeah.
yeah, but Sergio was. You could go sit the Matador on Broadway Street and see. There'd be 100 seats, and you could see Sergio Mendes in Brazil '65. It was amazing. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. But A&M had great records, and they made a lot of money off their publishing. And the first records I worked was a Joe Beam record called Wave.
Okay.
And then they had a Burt Bacharach called Reach Out that was really cool, corny, but cool. And I used to play these records over and over, and just my friends would come over and I said, "You got to hear this." I mean, the Joe Beam record was full of strings and overproduction, and Klaus Ogerman, the great arranger, did it, and it was. But it was great. It had Wave and some great Joe Beam songs on it.
So this is just the beginning of your career.
Yeah,
We're in the mid-'60s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just I broke the Ike and Tina Turner record, and at the same time I broke I started to break a record by the Moody Blues called Nights in White Satin, which the label didn't want to put it out.
Are you kidding me?
No, they didn't want to. They didn't think it was a hit. And I said, I said, come on. I said, we're selling a lot of albums.
Yeah.
I said, if this thing gets on the radio, look out.
Yeah.
And
that is by far their biggest hit.
Well, I don't know.
It's a song a lot of people think of when they think of the Moody Blues.
Well, yeah. I mean, that was a great album.
Yeah.
I must have given away 50 copies. You know, people would come up to Wilt's place, and when I was living there, I moved in when Wilt got traded back to Philly back in '65. He gave me his apartment. I paid rent, and I had this little record room, and I kept all my albums in there.
Wow.
I mean, walking through 8-foot doors.
Yeah.
It's my apartment.
I feel like Jack and the Beanstalk, or
yeah.
You know, when Wilt lived there, I mean, I'd come over for breakfast, and my legs would be tangling, like Lily Tomlin and the operator.
Sure.
But when I moved in, it was Katie by the door. I mean, Sly and all his cast was coming over, and some of the guys from Santana were coming over, and the guys from the Moody Blues and 10 Years After would come over and stay overnight because they didn't have to fly out the next day.
Right.
And I gave them, said, why don't you just stay here? My roommate would come home and say,
hang out. I got a fly pad in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a beautiful place, overlooking
with a pool, an 8-foot doorway.
Yeah. And then I try to teach him how to play football the next day because they were uncoordinated
musicians.
The Brits.
Right.
The Brits. I mean, I'm British, but these guys were.
Yeah, you were teaching British people how to play American football.
Yeah.
So you have a story about Santana, too.
One of the labels that I was distributing was called ABC Dunhill.
Okay.
And they had the Mamas and the Papas, and they had Steppenwolf. They wound up with Three Dog Night. But Mamas and Papas were big, and the manager of the band liked that because it was a small label. And he liked me. We're good friends. And he took it upon himself without asking Carlos. Santana liked to sign with ABC Dunhill. And I said, well, I got to get him up here to listen to the group first. So they send up this promotion guy, and he comes up and he's listening and he's going, what's the big deal?
Oh, boy.
And I says,
you don't hear it, huh?
You don't hear it. Because I've heard Tito Puente before.
Jesus.
No.
Wow.
Can you look at these girls over here. They're going crazy.
Yeah.
So he goes backstage, and the manager's sitting there, and we're talking, and he said, okay, so look, if you're looking for any front money, forget it. And my friend goes up, he says, excuse me, I'll be right back. And he gets up, and he leaves. And so this guy says to me 10 minutes later, he goes, where'd
your buddy go?
Where'd he go? I says, he's probably in the other room talking to CBS, you clown.
That's where they ended up, right? CBS?
Well, yeah, because here's the deal. Carlos absolutely idolized Miles Davis.
Okay.
And, of course, Bob Dylan was on the label.
Right.
So Carlos says, that's where I want to go.
Yeah. Forget about ABC Dunhill. And they're worried about front money.
Yeah, and they're a small label. They never would. We never could have done what CBS did.
Yeah.
Maybe. We had good distribution, so who knows. But when you're in the company of people like a Dylan,
sure. Wasn't Johnny Cash on CBS then?
Strength that comes with that.
Oh, my God. They were a superpower.
Yeah.
And Carlos was right. I mean, I ran into him later on, years later, and he goes, I never would have signed with you guys.
Yeah. It was good thinking.
Yeah.
But
it
wasn't destined to happen.
If I would have signed him, it would have been great. I would have made ABC was going to give me a piece of the action.
Oh, boy. How about a piece of the Santana action? That would have been okay, huh?
Yeah.
I think I might have made a few bucks.
Yeah.
But the next artist was Elvin Bishop, and I brought Elvin, and they all came up, and the producer from Steppenwolf showed up, Gabriel Kaplik, and I had him at the Matrix, which is this cool little club in San Francisco. Grateful Dead played there, and Janis and the Doors, a small one, 100-seater, really cool. And Elvin didn't show. So they said, well, I guess San Francisco's just not our place. It's just not meant to be.
Where is Elvin Bishop still around?
Oh, yeah.
He's still up in Santa Rosa.
Yeah. Yeah, he did a couple fundraisers for me and Albert Collins.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But
What are you raising money for nowadays? What you do a lot of fundraisers, man. Let's mention the folks you raise money for. What kind of causes are you involved in?
Well, I'm mainly involved with autism awareness.
Okay.
Which is we have at Bimbo's every year.
Ah.
And there was a book written called Voices of Latin Rock. The guy who wrote it came to me initially, and he wanted to write it about Malo. But I said, why don't you write about the Latin rock scene and all the bands that are from here?
Yes, and capture everything, not just Malo.
So he did. And I gave him a lot of quotes, and I said, I told him the Santana story. And so...
who else is in that book?
El Chicano. Daquila. Richie Valens,
sure.
Stories about the Black Panthers, Dolores Huerta, who marched with Cesar Chavez, Tower Power. But there's great stories about Santana. There's about 800 pictures that never had seen the light of day.
Wow.
And there was just great stories about Malo and how it's very, very interesting. Great pictures, well written. And from the book, I said, because it's a book, let's have a book signing party.
Sure.
And we'll get everybody.
Yeah, who showed up? Everybody?
600 people. What, you mean to play?
Yeah.
Okay, we had Malo. We had an all-star band, I think, the first year, which was very cool. But we did honor Russ Solomon, the guy who, the gentleman who created Tower Records.
Tower Records, yeah.
Yeah, we honored him.
Pete is a Tower Records alum.
Yeah.
Solomon Brothers all the way.
Oh, here comes Nico.
So
wearing his Break It Down show shirt.
Yeah, Break It Down show shirt.
Trying to think of
Jeff, this is my son, Nico.
Hi, Nico.
Nico, this is Jeff Trager.
How you doing? Anyway, it was great because it was a big party.
Yeah.
See, we invited...
okay, let's just say this for our listeners out in Middle America. It's great to go to a party. Everybody loves a party. But there's no party like you can imagine. A party that's a tribute to Latin rock.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
It was amazing. And we did it word of mouth.
Wow.
And we sold out Bimbos. And we made money for the Mind Institute in Davis. That was the first year. And so I said, let's do this again. This was so much fun. And my partner, Bernie Gonzalez, Dr. Bernardo Gonzalez, they call him Dr. Rock, he said, yeah, sure. So...
What's he a doctor of?
Dentistry.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, he's my dentist. I'll see him tomorrow.
Wow.
But I've known him. He used to manage Malo with another friend of mine, Ronnie Sanso. And so we had this great party, and everybody said, we want to do it again. We want to come back. And then people would dress up, and it was like the Ali Frazier fight. I mean, everybody was
it was the big
dressed.
event.
Oh, man. And so the next year, we grabbed Carlos's son as the carrot to get him to play. So Carlos did show up. And then we brought in a lot of the guys from the original Santana band, Greg Raleigh.
Oh, yeah.
And
who else was in the original Santana band? Mike Shreve?
Michael Shreve's, the band that recorded the first three albums. You know, it was Shreve's, it was Chapito.
Jose Chapito Arias, yeah.
Yeah, David Brown.
Coque Escobedo.
The best-looking black man I've ever met in my life. Green eyes. He was my brother, man. He was great. From the projects.
He did not have a hard time with the ladies.
No, and the guys. I mean, and he had the James Brown bass licks.
Yeah.
And so you put that all together, you get Shreves and Carabello.
That's right.
And Chapito. And then you have Raleigh. And then you had Carlos, of course, and you had Neil Sean, who was he joined him in the second record.
Right.
So we had all these guys playing with Greg and a friend of mine who was my musical director for the All-Star Band.
Okay.
That's when we started the All-Star Band. And it was guys from Tower Power and War and Santana and Sly and the Family Stone and all in the same band.
What year was this that you started the...
2004.
No kidding. We've had Mick Gillette on our show, too.
Mick played many times.
Oh, my God, man.
Mick was a close friend.
We really, really, really miss Mick. We really love him.
Mick and I knew each other back in 71 because I was responsible for getting Warner Brothers to consider signing Tower because my label didn't hear it.
come on.
I brought him a tape with "You're Still a Young Man" and "Down to the Nightclub."
Uh-huh.
And then I went back to, and he says, the president goes, I don't hear it.
Good
They don't
Lord.
impress me.
They don't impress me.
So I walked into the office at We, and I was pissed off.
Yeah, how could anyone say that?
I know. You know what? This is what I'm getting out of the life of Jeff Trager. He's known a lot of dumbasses.
Yeah, I mean,
A couple anyway.
Well,
How'd
yeah.
you like to be first the dumbass who doesn't recognize Santana?
It's
No,
still
I
a
don't
young
hear it,
man. How can that song starts and you're like, whoa.
Well,
Whoa.
but he got in the shower. As he was getting in the shower, he says, "Hey, Jeff, I'm not impressed by these guys." He got in the shower. By the time he got out, I was gone. I left, and I went back over to
Warner
Electromatic.
Yeah.
And I walked into the branch manager, and I yelling and screaming that this guy doesn't know what he's doing.
Sure.
Okay, he did know. He signed the Doors, Butterfield Blues Band. I mean,
Okay.
So anyway, and the branch manager goes, "Do you know Joe Smith?" And he pointing to Joe. Joe Smith is sitting behind me, and I said, "Oh, the color man for the Celtics." And he's laughing. He goes, "I says I know who Joe Smith is. He's the president of Warner Brothers."
Mm-hmm.
And Joe's sitting there, and he goes, "I'm listening to this story about Tower Power." He says, "You know, I've been wanting to sign them for the longest time.